I'm starting to get used to it, just a little bit. I've done my best to keep a regular human schedule as much as I can. Going to bed at night, waking up in the morning. Even if they're unnecessary, they help me feel a little bit more like myself. Like, not quite everything has changed. Hunger or not, I'd kill for a cheeseburger or something, though. I don't know what I'd do without Abigail. She's never far from my side, and she's my anchor through all this. Endlessly supportive and positive. I know that she views my circumstances, well, differently than I do. That she enjoys having me here. But I can't fault her for that. I still can't fathom the depth of the loneliness she felt, with nothing but a silent tree spirit for company. The days that we've spent together have been pleasant enough, but I still don't want to accept this fate. I can't. I rise from my spot on the stone floor. Sunlight pours through the stained glass window of the church, and has been for some time now. There hasn't been much snow since the storm that I was caught in. All of my time has been spent here in the church, or exploring the woods with Abigail. I try to see the charm in some of the places she's taken me, but they all feel the same. Trees and rocks and snow, in varying combinations. The forest may be huge, but it's stifling in how repetitive it all feels. I keep hoping that Tara and Morgan might come by, so I could at least see them, even if they can't see me. So far, they haven't. I look around the church, expecting to see Abigail waiting like usual, but she's nowhere to be found. I can hear her, though, from just outside the church, singing. I move through the doors to watch. Just a few feet away, she stands with her back to the church and me, her arms outstretched but not fully. She sways softly as she sings. And God, how she sings. Her voice has a lilting cadence, and not even the wind dares interrupt or quiet her. It's unreasonably beautiful. The kind of voice that if you heard it on the radio, you'd have to pull out your phone to see who you're listening to. And to think, I get my own private concert like this. She faces the sky, and I don't need to be able to see her face to visualize the smile that I can hear in her voice. The song she's singing is wordless, but still beautiful. I wonder if it's something she came up with herself. I imagine her spending years playing with the melody. Or maybe she's just making it up as she goes along. I notice that I'm not the only one watching. A small flock of half a dozen or so birds crowd around her feet, watching in rapt attention. They hop around, occasionally cheeping to join in. She waves a hand and they flutter about, never perching on her but never leaving either. From the trees just barely peeking out, a young deer observes as well. It isn't close enough for her to touch, but close enough for me to count the spots on its belly. It's just like something out of a cartoon where she's the fairy tale princess who's friends with the wildlife. I wonder if it's because of her in particular, or if the animals don't feel threatened just because we're spirits, not flesh and blood. All too soon it's over. Her voice fades away without wobbling, and the birds instantly disperse. The deer bounds back into the woods, invisible. She turns to me.
Good morning, Madison.
I'm blushing and I don't know why. Good morning. That was amazing.
Thank you. I hope I didn't wake or disturb you.
Nah, not at all. Besides, if I'd known, I'd have gotten up earlier just to hear more.
Aw, you're flattering me.
No way, not at all, I mean it. You have a beautiful voice. Now she's blushing too.
Thank you.
How did you learn to do that without scaring away the animals?
It wasn't really a matter of learning. It just happened naturally over time. I sang for myself, first and foremost. I think eventually they realized I wasn't a threat.
Seemed like they were enjoying the show too.
It's quite the compliment if even the birds like my song.
There was a deer, too. You might not have seen him, though. He was kind of hiding in the bushes.
Oh, was he? I'll have to introduce you next time. He's quite friendly, too.
Really? You know him?
Most likely. I suppose it could have been a new deer. I'd have to see him to know for sure.
Nowadays, there are these things called petting zoos, where you can pay money to walk around and pet tame animals, like deer and sheep and pigs. I've never heard of them just making friends with people, though.
That sounds marvelous. Have you ever been to one?
Not since I was a lot younger. They're mostly for kids.
Adults in the modern world sound awfully boring in that case.
Abigail walks to my side, standing close like she always does. I wonder if it's intentional. Together, we face the forest. She touches my arm so lightly that I wonder if it's intentional too.
If you're feeling up for it, there's someplace I'd like to show you, here in the forest. It's one of my favorite spots.
Of course, lead on. I'd love to see anything that you think is special. Besides, it's not like I have anywhere else to be. I refrain from saying that out loud. I am genuinely interested in what she wants to show me. I like spending time with Abigail. But I hope that she'll also be willing to answer some more of my questions now too. Having fun together is nice, but it just feels like a distraction from the matter at hand. Speaking of hands, Abigail takes mine, ever so gently.
Let's go then.
We take off at a brisk pace, but the distance falls way faster than normal. I'm borne along by her boundless enthusiasm, and surely more than a little magic. Trees fly by at a blur, impossibly fast. It's like being on a train again. Like snowflakes, they melt into my vision faster than I can really notice. The speed is some gift of the forest, I imagine, a consolation for what it's done to me. Our footsteps are formless against the snow. We're walking in the air. It's the same as when I first met Abigail. That feels like an eternity ago. For at least a couple hours more, I try to push those thoughts away so I can enjoy whatever it is she wants to show me. I want to enjoy this for my own sake. For her sake, too. I have trouble thinking of anything other than her. The gentleness of her grip, the light and joyful way she moves across the ground, the certainty with which she pulls me forward. Every so often, she turns around to make sure I'm still there, though I'm sure she's very aware of our interlocked fingers. I know that I am. Guess I can add that to the ever-growing list of feelings to sort through. The forest shifts even faster than it did a few days ago, when we went to visit the spirit. It changes too fast for me to keep track of any reference points. If I try to focus on one spot for too long, I get a little dizzy, so I stop focusing on that and just go with the flow. Eventually, Abigail slows her pace, and the passing of the forest reverts to a normal rate as well. At first glance, it seems like any other part we visited, but when I look closer, I start to notice small differences. Some trees are devoid of snow with piles of it behind them, as if someone brushed them clean. Others were decorated with strange, paint-like streaks of color, mostly blue, but some are white. Icicles dangle from the branches and give off a strange glow. When I approach to examine one, the glow dims. Abigail pays it no mind. This must not be strange to her either. I hurry to catch up, though she's only gotten a few steps away.
We're almost there. It's just up ahead.
Through the trees, I can already see where she's taking me. Splashes of brilliant pink peek out just overhead, mostly obscured by the barren brown trees. I don't even have time to be curious about what they are before we arrive. A splendid grove of colorful trees spreads out before us, surrounding a small pond that must be enchanted. The leaves that hang from the trees are salmon pink, flecked with flickering lights. Lavender bushes crowd their bases, sparkling with dew or magic. White snow covers the ground all the way up to the shores of the pond. The trees themselves are devoid of it, much like the forest spirit's home. I wonder if the two are related somehow. Even more remarkable, though, is that the pond itself is also unfrozen. Its glassy surface is smooth, save for the occasional ripple that spreads across. It's small enough that I can see clear across to the other side. It makes this place feel even more secret and hidden. You could wander the forest for years and never stumble across it. I move slowly towards the water. This place deserves calmness. Oh, Abigail. It's beautiful. The water laps at my feet, though remains undisturbed. Like a vampire, I have no reflection, a fact that I pointedly try to ignore. Where are we? What makes this place so special?
This is one of my favorite places. Isn't it lovely?
As for what makes it special,
Her eyes twinkle conspiratorially.
Fairies.
There's a beat of silence. I feel like I should be surprised at her answer, but I'm not. After everything I've seen, fairies are downright mundane. I remember her mentioning them before, too. I look around, wondering if I've missed them hiding somewhere, but I don't see anything. Abigail laughs.
Just as decorators, they aren't around right now. They much prefer the nighttime. They're far more active in the moonlight. You can see traces of them, though.
As an example, she cups one of the icicle-like baubles that hang from the trees. Inside, a faint light beats like a heart, dim enough to be invisible in the daylight.
I'm sure they're around, watching, but I've only met them once myself. It may be years before you do.
There it is again, the promise of eternity spent like this. I bite my lip. I think that's okay with me. I've had enough magic for 1 week.
Yes, understandable.
She walks back to the shore of the pond and sits down. I take a seat beside her. Really though, thank you for bringing me here. It's nice.
I wanted to show you that not everything about it is bad. That life does have its own little moments of niceness.
I look at her, but she's staring pointedly away, toward the pond. Her cheeks redden a little bit. Unlife is a good word for it.
Do you think so? I worried, before you woke up, that I would have forgotten how to speak, or forgotten words. I talked to myself to keep in practice, waiting for a day when I would meet someone again. That's also why I sing, so that I don't forget how much I enjoy it, even if nobody listens. I know that it's silly, but sometimes a bit of silliness can be what helps me keep going.
I don't think it's silly at all. Besides, if I could sing like you, I'm sure I'd do it all the time too.
I could teach you if you'd like.
Oh no, you don't know what you're getting into. I'm pretty sure I'm unteachable when it comes to singing. You'd have birds flying miles away instead of coming to listen. She laughs.
Come now, I'm sure it can't be that bad. I knew nothing of singing when I first started. I simply practiced and practiced. Everything gets easier with practice and time.
My singing voice has got to be the one exception. My middle school choir teacher even told me that there was no way I would ever be a singer. It was one of the most traumatic days of my 12 short years back then.
In all of existence?
Out of everything.
In that case, I suppose I must hear it, just to know. You can't promise something like that and then not demonstrate.
No way. Not happening.
What if we sang a duet?
Definitely not.
Oh, you're no fun.
She playfully swipes at my shoulder.
Are there any instruments that you do enjoy? Any that I've heard of, that is?
Piano. I've taken lessons since I was a little girl.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, I miss it. I flex my fingers, staring down at them, remembering the feeling of keys. Even before coming out here, it had been a while since I played. I don't think I ever consciously stopped. It just happened over time.
Most of the time, the only music I'd have the opportunity to listen to was during prayers or the occasional traveling performer. Sometimes I'd convince Mr. Braun, who played the organ, to show me some of the pieces he'd learned in the city.
She says this with a sly smile, sharing some private joke with me. Do you remember the names of any of the pieces? I wonder if I've heard of them.
Oh yes, there was,
She bites her nail, thinking about it.
Oh, it's on the tip of my tongue.
She squirms, wiggling around like she's hoping the memory will fall into place. Finally, she shakes her head.
Maybe not. It seems I've forgotten. Do you think there's a chance, though? Are you very familiar with songs from, well, my time?
Some of them, yeah. A lot of the most famous and respected composers come from those days. From this part of the world, too. Abigail sighs wistfully and looks off into the distance.
I'm glad to hear that. They must be magnificent to be remembered so many years later. How nice it must be to leave behind a legacy, to be missed.
The way she says it is wistful, a dreamy sigh, like something that she longs for. I glance over, half expecting her to be crying, but her face is steady and calm. She catches me looking and smiles.
I'm sorry. I'm just feeling a little nostalgic.
You don't need to apologize. I like hearing what's on your mind.
I'm glad. It would be rather unfortunate if, after everything, we didn't get along.
We both laugh at the idea. I do have another question, though. A personal one. I know you said I can ask you anything, but...
I meant it. Please, go ahead.
Well, before, you said that you've never even tried to go back. Escape. Whatever the right word for it would be. Why is that? Doesn't it bother you, being stuck like this? Abigail scratches at the soft dirt beneath us. Of course, her fingers move impotently through it, changing nothing. If you don't want to answer, that's okay.
I don't mind. I'm just thinking of what to say. So I suppose that you've been thinking about it a lot, right? How to go back.
I nod. Almost constantly. I don't know if it's possible or anything, but... Don't get me wrong, I'm beyond grateful that you saved me at all. But it feels like we're so close to being alive, but not. Everything's changed, but at the same time, it's like nothing has. I don't feel much different, but everything's different. I have a whole life out there. Or, at least I did. I can't just forget about it, or move on, or give up, or something.
understand.
She's quiet, and I wonder if I went too far. If I asked something that I shouldn't have. In a lot of ways, it's one of the most intimate and personal questions I could possibly ask. Then she shifts around to face me better.
I didn't have much left once I moved on. My family and all those I care about, I had no desire to return to them. And then time started to pass. At first the days felt slow, torturously slow. I did nothing but sit around and mope, never straying from the forest spirit who had saved me. But then I started to explore more, to get to know the forest, find moments of happiness. It was still terribly lonely, of course. It has been, until you got here. But I can honestly say that I didn't hate it. I sang, I watched, I found my own joy where I could. Eventually, time left me behind. The people I had known grew old and died. I'm sure many forgot about me long before I forgot about them. At some point, there was nothing for me to want to go back to. The rest of the world outside the forest is just a maze that I don't know how to navigate. Here, in the forest, I know nearly all there is to know. There is no grief, or loss, or pain. There's just peace.
Before I can respond, she stands up, brushing away imaginary dirt from her gown.
Would you feel up for another walk through the woods? Perhaps this time, I can show you where the wisest, most handsome-looking owl rests. It's been so long since I said hello to him.
She offers me a hand. I take it, and the obvious subject change, and she helps me to my feet. Sure, let's go. With a smile, she leads me back towards the trees. So many of the conversations that I have with Abigail are painful reminders, either of the years of solitude she's endured, or what I can look forward to in my own future. Both make me very certain of one thing. I'm glad that she's here with me.